And this is so that the city can post it on their website for you to view later or share with someone to view later. Thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Drake Reeder. I'm a landscape architect and land planner with Gamble Design Collaborative. I'm here representing, sorry if I keep looking to the side, there are people joining in, but I'm here representing Fellowship Bible Church as they bring forward a development plan. I'm joined by Bill Wellens and Eric Hoffman with the church. So you may remember us. We were here not too long ago for an Envision Franklin amendment. The next stage in the approval process for the city of Franklin is the development plan stage. And this stage is still pretty high level, but we dig in a little more detail than we did in the Envision Franklin amendment, which was just to allow us to bring this forward. So after the development plan process would be the site plan. And at the site plan level is really when we dig into our engineering documents. So I just wanted to give you a heads up of where we are in the process. We are going to allot some time at the end of the meeting for you to ask questions. You can either take yourself off mute at the end or put a question in the chat, and we will try to answer to the best of our ability. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric to talk about a little bit about Fellowship.
Thanks, Drake. Good to be with you all again. Hope you guys are having a great start to your new year. My name is Eric Hoffman. I'm an executive pastor here at Fellowship Bible Church. And our journey as a church began 25 years ago in Williamson County, and it began in Franklin High School cafeteria, before the Brentwood campus was built on Franklin and Concord Road. I joined staff here in 2010 to help launch our Franklin campus, which is currently in lease space on Columbia Avenue, just south of 5 Points in Franklin. And so over the past 8 years, since we're in lease space, we've been looking for a permanent facility, permanent place that we could call home. And a few months ago, we started having conversations with the Cross family and started talking about what would that look like to dream about ways that we could preserve the look and feel of that land and have a home for our church there. And so our hope is to be able to create a space that really fosters connection, has an ample green space, preserves the look and feel of what the current horse farm is and what the Cross property is, and the beautiful front lawn. We want to keep all of that, but a place that really does provide connection for people, not just a building. And so that's why we love this property. We said all along our commitment is to be transparent with where we are in the process, and to listen to your feedback as the community and neighbors. And we want to work with you all in that. And so we're so grateful for your feedback and look forward to hearing from you again tonight. And it's been very helpful for us in shaping some of these things. And to that end, I want to introduce Bill Wellens. Bill has been part of our team, and turned over to him to share about where we are and who we've been working with on this project.
Yeah, glad to. Drake, a minute ago, mentioned kind of where we are in the process, that this piece of property, the Cross property, was originally approved for 32 residential lots. We came in this summer and asked for that amendment that he mentioned, that it might be the land could be used for a church use, and that was the land plan amendment. And then now we're in the development plan stage. And I want to just make one comment about the development plan. It's different than what we've showed you as neighbors in the past. You know, we had a formal meeting with the city, and we had several informal meetings that we invited many of you to. And the development plan is a little different than the original plan that we used for the amendment. And in this way, it represents more of a master plan. So think about it in terms of long term, like all that the site might become long term. It's not what we're planning to do. That's still the same as what we showed you early on, but it is like a fully built out site for, if ever needed, for future generations or whatever that might be. So that's what you'll see tonight. And you'll see that in just a minute. And one of the things I wanted to do on the front end in light of that was, I mentioned that we'd had a number of meetings, and I just wanted to share briefly. This will just be an overview, and then Drake will walk us through the plan. But I wanted to share what we heard from neighbors all along the way, and some of the ways that we've adjusted and made some changes to accommodate those things. And then I'll turn it over to Drake. Here are a few of the things that we've heard along the way. One is concern about traffic. Obviously, it's a concern for lots of people to the south during the week and for sure on Sundays as well. And we said back then that we would address that in a traffic study. I just want you to know that we're in that study right now. We've progressed significantly in that study, and we're working with the city now on finalizing that study, and we'll make those recommendations available to you when we finish that study. There were concerns early on, still concerns about a road connection to the south into the Douglas Glen neighborhood. And I want you to know that we've requested from the city a modification of standard to remove that road going to the south, or to not allow for that road to go to the south. We know that was a big concern for you. There were concerns early on about whether or not we'd have a school or a preschool. Once you know that we're not going to do that, just wanted to reiterate that. We've communicated that to the city as well. Then there were some concerns about church building location being close to the property lines. I want you to know that we've moved those further from the property lines. You'll see this in just a minute, from the property lines as well as from the neighbors. There were concerns, as you might expect, about lighting and lighting pollution, which we'll address in the next phase, actually, as we get into more detail. But I want you to know that in addition to our desire to remedy those things, we certainly don't want light pouring into someone's kitchen window or bedroom window or anything close to that. But the city as well has some strict kind of restrictions and covenants, regulations that we have to follow. And so we'll meet those for sure, or even exceed them in some places. There's concerns about stormwater, how it runs from kind of the north to the south. There's some elevation change down there. You'll see in just a minute how we're trying to remedy that with detention pond areas, and also working within limitations on how we allow for water to flow off the property into a stream that's down to the south. So all those are being tied up. In fact, the civil engineer is working on that even as we speak this month. So there's some concerns around those things. There are also some desires that you shared with us that you'd like to see. One was a desire to move the pond such that the sight lines from the neighbors would be more toward the pond and the green space between buildings as opposed to the back of the buildings. I wanted you to know that we did that. We actually moved the pond almost 100 feet. We moved the green space about 60 feet so that we could accomplish some of that and give you a little bit better sight line as you were looking onto the property, especially from the south, but from the north as well. A desire from you guys for us to build some landscaping berms, both north and south, which we're committed to doing. Understand how that helps as well. And then a few things that you liked. One, you liked the green space, especially up in front of the house along Lewisburg Pike. You like the green space in the middle of our campus as well. Want you to know that we're keeping all that and have maximized that as well in recent months. You like the existing house. I just mentioned the house, which we're planning to keep as well. And then you like keeping parking to the rear of the development, back on the back part, furthest away from Lewisburg Pike, furthest away from the neighborhoods. And we've been able to do that. In fact, we moved some parking that was along a south driveway to the back when we moved the pond and the green space, the quad space to the east a little bit. We were able to free up more parking in the rear. We also minimized or shrunk that road down a little bit that was running along the south and moved it in to our campus more away from the boundary. So we just want to say on the front end, we've heard you, we're listening to you. We probably didn't capture every single thought, but we captured most of them right there and are trying to make changes to accommodate you guys as best we can because we really do want to be good neighbors. And as Eric said a minute ago, looking forward to any other concerns or questions that you guys have tonight. So I'll turn it back over to Drake. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Bill. As Bill mentioned, we wanted to show you kind of a side-by-side of the conceptual plan we brought forth with the Envision Franklin Amendment. It was a pretty high level. As we started looking through the details of the site, we refined a little bit more in speaking with the church and some of the needs they have. And you can see a lot of the elements that Bill was talking about, moving that southern drive. That's probably the biggest change, was moving that southern drive north and removing the parking off of that, turning it into a one-way 16-foot drive aisle. getting the head-in parking off of that drive aisle, because there were some concerns about parking being close to the back of existing residential homes.
Hey, Drake, are you able to point to that, to where that is with your document or no?
So
There you go. Okay, thanks.
So our previous on the left, you could see we had some of that head-in parking on both sides of the street, and it was a two-way. With this new design, we've pushed that to a one-way, 16 foot, and removed that parking off of there. And really, it allows us to focus a lot of the main part of our traffic to the north and around the west side of the property. And here's just a blow up of the proposed plans that we're proposing with this development plan. As Bill said, this is the full campus. This is the full build out at development plan stage. Because we are asking for entitlements, we are asking for that full build out for future phases down the road. The full build out would be around 120,000 square feet. But you can see the buildings that are kind of grayed out and light, and those are the future phases. What the church is really focusing on building right now is phase one, which would be the worship center, a connection building, and the education center for the children, as well as keeping the existing home and turning it into offices. So that's really the phase one. The other buildings are future phases. And as we talked about previously, at the Brentwood campus, Fellowship is still on phase one 20 years later. So not to say that will happen here, but just to give you an idea of, as we look big picture, the main thing that they are pushing for and wanting with the phase one is the dark, and then the light would be that future build out as the campus expands. You can see here some of the architectural renderings that JC has put together. And this is really to kind of give a feel. In the development plan stage, we're still pretty early in the conceptual design, but this is to give you an idea of the kind of look and feel that we are heading towards and moving towards. And you can see with this design, instead of having one large building, breaking those buildings into smaller structures to really emphasize and focus on that quad, which really creates that campus style campus that the church is looking for and uses for worship, for play, for the kids. It's just a big part of their overall philosophy. The other thing that Bill mentioned was that Southern connection. That was a huge deal when we came forward originally, and thanks in part, a large part, to you all as the neighbors bringing, voicing your concerns about that. We were able to get that removed in our previous development plan. We will be also asking for that modification to allow that. Currently, code requires us to connect to the south. We are not showing that. We are not planning on showing that, and we are going to ask for a modification of standards to remove that connection. And as we look forward, the next process, we're just getting into the process of the development plan stage. There will be continued refinements and meetings with the city. We'll be at the joint conceptual workshop at the end of this month. There are future public meetings that you can attend to see the progress of the plans, as well as make your voices heard if you so choose. And you will get notifications in the mail when those do come up. And with that, we're able to answer any questions you may have. You can take yourself off mute or write a question in the chat, and we will try to answer them.
Hi, this is Laura and Jay Shield. We are located probably the closest to anybody who's on the call so far that I can tell. We're the second to the last house at the end, right now overlooking the pond, I guess. We have a few questions with regard to the barrier between us and you all. I noticed and first of all, thank you for doing everything that you can to eliminate coming in from the south parking lot into our neighborhood. That is a huge thing, and we very much appreciate the fact that you've listened to us and our neighbors about that. But with regard to the landscaping that's going to occur, some of the written things that I've seen on there is that you're keeping the existing tree line, but are you adding additional trees? You mentioned the berm, but what type of landscape is actually going in, if you have any idea yet? And then secondly, wondering if it's possible to build a privacy fence. As we've watched the activity that's happening behind us right now, and I know Mr. Cross is on the line, it's been very, very sad to see the horses go. And I know they're cleaning out the barn now and cleaning out the house. At least that's what it looks like is happening. So we're really sad to see that, but it's making us realize that maybe we do need a fence behind us. And so wanted to ask about the possibility of a privacy fence as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think, as Bill mentioned, the plan is to have an enhanced landscape plan along the southern border here, as well as the berm, as he mentioned before. As we move into site plan is really when we dive into the details of a planting plan and some of that grading that accompanies with the landscape berm. So we will take your comment and as we move forward into the site plan, work that in. Bill, do you have anything you want to add about the fence?
Yeah, just appreciate the comment. Just to answer a little more specifically, the existing tree line plus additional landscaping, tree, shrubs, that sort of thing. We don't have it defined yet, Laura, in terms of what exactly will go there, what exactly it will look like, and definitely open to a conversation around the privacy fence. In fact, I think it'd be helpful, especially for those those four houses right there, for us to sit down when we get to that place and work on something that works for everybody. So be glad to have those conversations going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate your comment.
Okay.
Okay.
My name's Carrie Mott, and I live at 2518 St. James. I guess the fifth house from the end that backs up there. I just had a couple of questions. I just want to make sure I 100% understand that there's never any plans or possibility of building in front of the existing property. Is that correct?
You're talking about this area?
Correct.
Yes, the plan that you're seeing is the full build out of the campus.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kari. One of the things that we really like about this property, and one of the things that we want to keep, is that kind of longer drive off of Lewisburg. So it actually kind of helps people kind of decompress going up the hill and getting to the back part. And the other thing that we like about putting our buildings in the back is there's actually, the hill separates the noise from Lewisburg. So there's a lot of different reasons why we like it. It also enhances this for Franklin, to keep this as a green space. When you drive up down Lewisburg, this is one of the properties that you really notice because of the huge lawn, and we want to preserve that as well.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure I answered all my questions that I no more building, landscape. So will there's potential road to the north and the west, will those potentially be connected at some point, or is that still TBD, probably based on the traffic study?
Yeah, the road to the north is a required connection, and the road to the west. We aren't in control of it after it kind of extends past our property lines. We are
Gotcha.
just to provide those stubs for that future connection.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And then just my question is, I know that the drive changes. Would it be possible to get like an overlay of where the new potential drive versus where the drive is now, just to get a concept of how much that, or if you have an idea of how much that shifts south?
Yeah, you're talking about the existing drive south at Mrs.
Yes.
Crawford?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can barely see it kind of underneath the green, but it kind of, as
Okay.
it stands right now, comes in right about that area. And so we are required by the city to move that drive to align with St. George's Way. It's just a safer connection.
No, I mean, that will help with the traffic, and that makes absolute sense. I just wanted to see how much further we're looking at being closer to the drive, I guess. And that's just a one-way, like, it's 2 lanes, I guess, just one in and one out.
We are working through the traffic study now.
Okay.
As of right now, I think there's a coming in, and then there's a lane going left and a lane going right, if I'm
Okay.
remembering that correctly. And so that there'll be 3 lanes there at the very beginning, and then it'll taper down into the 2 lanes as you extend further back towards the existing home.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for all the adjustments that you've made already.
Yeah, thank you, Kari. Appreciate your comments.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Mason. I'm actually on Carrie's login. She was gracious enough to share it with me because I failed to register in advance. I live on that back line on St. James Drive, albeit a little bit further away from those houses that back right up. Eric, you made a comment about that kind of front space a little bit ago that was like, I think something to the effect of it'll help keep the noise off of Lewisburg. We're obviously much closer to all the buildings. When you say it'll keep the noise further away from Lewisburg, what do you mean by that? And how do you anticipate that to impact our neighborhood?
Oh yeah, what I was saying is the reason why we wouldn't build in the front part of the lawn is because of the noise of Lewisburg. So when you get actually past that tree line, you go down into like a valley where it gets a lot quieter.
Oh, of Lewis. Okay,
Yeah.
of Lewisburg. I thought it was the inverse that you were referencing the noise toward the houses on Lewisburg.
No.
Awesome. Thank you. That was my question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we hope the new layout helps to push traffic more along that northern drive, because I know that was a big concern for everyone as we developed our Envision Franklin plan.
I actually just thought of one more question. The layout, kind of the mock draft of what the campus might look like, several of those buildings looked quite high. Do you have a sense of like what the folks who do back up to this are going to see? Is it going to feel like a high rise? Is it going to feel like kind of eye level for them? TBD.
Yeah, we're still developing our elevations as you work through. JC may be able to answer that question more. We are working through some different perspectives to try to show that there is a lot of great change. And as you move towards the southern, this area in particular, everything kind of heads back this way. So we are trying to work with the grade and not come in and just kind of flat top everything. I think that's important to the church as well. And so we are working through how do we sit within the grade and work within the existing contours.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Drake, and just to add to that, all of the buildings are 2-story. There are no 3-story buildings or 5-story buildings. So these are all 2-story buildings on the what I would refer to as the high side, which is more of north side of the property. Those will actually feel like a 1-story building from that side. And then from the quad side or the south side, those buildings will feel like 2-story buildings. So really the goal is to try to keep it, like Eric and Bill mentioned, as residential in nature as possible, which is why we're breaking up the buildings like Drake mentioned and stuff like that. It's more to create a collection of buildings that have that feeling of the legacy of this property. So.
Awesome. Thank you. And +1 to what Carrie said about the meaningful changes that you all have made. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. We may have failed. I may have missed it as well to introduce. That's JC Elder. JC's our building architect, our architect with Bauer Askew. That's who just spoke.
This is Laura again. With regard to timing, I see on your next steps that the final thing listed on there is February 22nd. If things go to plan, what is your start date and what is your end date? I know it's obviously tentative right now, but can you give us some idea of when all this is going to begin?
Greg, I could, oh, you want to go ahead?
I'll
Either
speak
way.
to the process, and Bill, if you want to talk about the construction side. After planning commission, the development plan does have to go to the board of mayor and aldermen, so there will be 3 meetings with that. After we develop the development plans and we get voted on, it takes about 3 months to get together the site plan documents, which are kind of the next level, not quite construction documents, but they're almost there. And that will go through the full cycle with the city as well. And then Bill, if you want to talk about the anticipated start date for construction.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So as a part of this process, obviously, we don't want to run too far out ahead of any particular approval, but we are doing some work, as you might think, with our architect on design, mostly right now, boxes on a page, square footages, usage for children, students, adults, how those things break down, et cetera. If we are approved, then we'll obviously continue that and move pretty quickly into we'll be in design development, but into some detailed design and then ultimately construction drawings. We're not sure exactly when we'll finish that. Would hope to have that finished maybe by year end or the first of next year, and then begin construction shortly thereafter. Construction will take more than a year. So I think we're still on kind of our general timeline that we kind of initially laid out, which would be a move sometime in 26.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate the feedback. It really does help us as we develop our plans and as we move forward with the city. And thanks for joining. Bill, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, not me. Any remaining question that hadn't been asked? Just give you one more shot here in case. Otherwise,
Hey, what's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, maybe just jot this down. I don't have a way to put it on the screen, but feel free to email me, Bill Wellens. I'll spell my last name first, Wellons, but it's bill.wellens, again, Wellons @outlook.com.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and we will see you at the next meeting.
I have one more question, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
I understand my note that I left myself. The existing fence that is there, would that, I know that it's just time for that to come down, is all. That was my note I had about a fence, was that fence. Is that going to be replaced or stay?
Yeah, are you mentioning the fence on the
The
south
south side?
border? Okay.
Yes.
Are you saying it's in disrepair? I hadn't really looked at that fence, to be honest.
Yes. And
Okay.
just kind of, as we were talking about, I was thinking Laura had brought up the privacy fence. And so that was what I thought I wrote down fence for, but the fence that is actually there now is in disrepair, just as.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Does that run the whole border by across by St. James to the Douglas Glen?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
It runs all the way up and down, and it's I think a 4 or 5 slat horse fence, black, and she's right. It's very, very much in disrepair.
Okay.
So yes, I would think we'd need to replace that for sure. And then for the 4 of us that are at the end, a privacy fence would be amazing.
Great. We'll take a look at it and then talk further with you guys about it. Appreciate you bringing that up.
Thanks.
Any last questions? All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
You guys.
Good night.